Welcome to the Electric Human Part 3, and this one is called The Place. And it's really about the place, the position of where things are in relation to our aura, our energy fields, and also looking at places externally, how they affect our energy conditions. So let's first look at energy in relation to ourselves. Of course, this is already a huge subject, but it's one of the elements in the 10-part series, and we'll look at some points that are particularly interesting. Of course, if you want to know more, go to the site www.rubymountain.org/journey, and you can start on your own studies. There's a whole course series. Just the first module is about the electric human and auras and atmospheres, colors and the astral light, all sorts of interesting things. And then there's another 6 modules about all types of important energy and spiritual matters. So the place. All things are not the same. All things are not equal. If you look at the physical body, it's full of different components. It makes sense that our electrical side, or the electrical side of our lives, would also have many different components, and it does. So the idea that the aura is kind of a gas that just hangs around the body, a kind of glow, is very, very general. And we can conclude that because when you start to see energy, or if you have a moment when you see a person's aura, you may simply see a light initially. But that's just one small piece. There's many different elements to the energy systems, and let's look at a few that you can kind of check and test for yourself and study a little bit. So first of all, about the layout of the aura generally. Another thing that happens is we see it for the first time generally around close to the body. So you may even go to an aura class and they're explaining how to see the aura, and they'll help you to see this light around the body. And it's not that difficult. You need semi-light conditions, so sunrise or sunset, or a half-lit room. Like adjust the lighting. It helps the eyes to take off the intensity of seeing physically and start to relax. And then if you focus your eyes on a certain point, you start to develop electrical vision. Slowly at first, but if you keep looking, you start seeing more and more detail. It takes a little bit of patience. And so you're going to see this first layer, but that first layer is like anything else. It has stratas to it, the aura. So that first layer is just that. It's just the first layer. And there is another layer further out, about to the extent of the elbows. And then there's another layer that really extends out in a big egg shape. And if you put your arms straight out, that's about as far out as it goes. And it can brighten and expand or contract according to our internal processes. And it's those processes that cause the aura to get filled with light and energy and different colors and frequencies. And curiously, the first layer is easier to see. The second is a bit more difficult to see. And the third level is harder to see. It's like there's slightly finer substances of energy. Energy is also a little bit like material. Imagine a fabric. You get finer fabrics like silk and rougher fabrics. And energy is like that too. Some things are a bit denser and some things are lighter. We've also got stratas or layers coming out from the body, and I won't go into them now, but they basically correspond with where there are separate sections of the body. So there's a layer coming out from the neck, there's a layer out around the eyes, and so on down through the body. So we have these segments to our auric composition. And even just that first fact that you and your presence actually extends out this large, so about 1 meter in every direction in a big spherical shape, is already amazing, because it means that everywhere you go, right now I'm sitting in front of the computer, my aura is touching the computer system. So it's always having interference and signals coming into it. Some of it's filtered out, some of it does influence our auric state, which can leave us feeling disturbed, or if it's good influence, of course, makes us feel better. This is one of the reasons, one of the first lessons or episodes in the course series is how to clear and cleanse your aura and how to condition it the way you want it to be. So here's a couple of interesting things. The hand is a particularly sensitive and bright and important aspect of our energy systems, the hands. And of course, hands are amazing instruments. If you think about life without a hand, think how much it facilitates you. Just physically, but electrically, there's another whole dimension to a hand. There are lines of force coming out from each finger, for example, and these lines of force have different colors. We won't go into now the reason and why and what they're to do with. It's too much. Again, it's in the course. But the thing to know is that there is energy coming out. So when you pass your hand close to, for example, the side of your face, or you can pass one hand along just a few centimeters from the other hand, you may start to feel force coming out of your fingers and stroking the skin of the other hand. Skin can be extremely sensitive to radiation. So this is why sometimes when you hold your partner's hand or you touch somebody, you can get a shock, or you can feel I'm not talking about static shock, static electricity. I'm talking about you can feel that the nature of the energy that is coming from the hand of the person. And this loops over to why, for example, the Pope would take off his silk gloves and bless, because the silk, remember in the last episode, the silk was insulating, but now the Pope wants to bless, so he takes off his glove and blesses. The fingers having different radiations and the conductivity on the planet being stronger in the past explains the idea of acupressure and acupuncture being originally not to do with sticking needles in, but to do with applying force straight out from a finger into a certain zone of the body to help rebalance. So you've got 5 different natures of energy from each finger. You've also got 2 different polarities of hand. And according to the imbalance that the physician, the electrical physician, met, he would apply a certain finger from a certain hand into a certain spot and cause a rebalance and therefore a healing in the system. So it's a big subject, but you can start by feeling the radiation coming from your own hand, practice with a friend, and then move to different fingers. Now, for example, this finger here that we put the wedding ring on, the Romans said that this finger was connected through to the heart, that there was a vein. Very interesting idea, because it is a finger that radiates yellow force, and yellow energy affects the emotions. It's to do with the emotion. In Portuguese, it's called amarelo. Amarelo literally translates to love link, the link of love. And here's a curious story. We have 3 cats. One of them, when she was very little, was very ferocious, a little tiger. And one of those cats that when you put your hand to touch or stroke, she jumps and attacks. I think I found that if I put my yellow finger first when I approached, she would immediately stop attacking and go soft, and she would not attack, and I could stroke her gently with this finger, this yellow finger. Try it if you have a aggressive little cat. And so that finger has a softening energy, a smoothing energy. So again, it can be used for massaging, for example, to soften and cool down at the temples. I would not recommend use that finger. I would recommend using this finger here, the yellow finger, and it will calm the system down. A couple of other interesting features about the aura. There is this radiation above the head. You can see it depicted in the first episode. Well, if we have this radiation above the head and extends up really quite high, it's another almost a meter above the head. What that means is every time we go through a classic doorway, we're cutting through our aura. It's doing a little chop. Same thing in a car, chop. So it's curious that in these old religious buildings like convents and monasteries, they would have these archways. They would not cut the top of the aura, but would complement the shape of the aura. They're actually curved in the shape of the aura. Somebody who's on a religious quest, this region of the aura becomes more important, because it's up here, finer energies will gather. And so there's different radiations coming out from different parts of the body, down from the chin, out from the nose, out from the ears, around the neck. Every organ has its own radiation. So there are auras within auras. We don't just have one aura. We have these segments that I described, and also each individual component part physically has a corresponding radiation. The chin, for example, the energy that comes out and down through and from the chin is mental energy, and it was depicted in the Egyptian artwork. If you look at that form under the chin in Egyptian artwork, it's pretty clear that it's not normal hair. It doesn't look anything like hair. What is it? They are showing this radiation because the mental development and emotional development was very important further back in time, because without that development, these higher energies simply cannot be processed. There's a corresponding feature between the mind, emotions, and energy. I think most people see that and feel that and know that. So this jumps across the body language, because you get the classic position when people touch their chin when they're thinking about something. So if you put those two parts together, you've got energy coming out from the fingers. Now you've got somebody touching their chin when they need to think about something. So what's happening is force is being fired up through this shaft of energy, but back up into the brain. And so you're adding more power into the brain to help think. Another area people do this is at the portals. There are energy portals where the temples are. Interesting, the word temple, because the idea of a temple is a place that houses energy or receives energy. And sure enough, these spots in the aura actually have a form like a horn coming out from them electrically. Something I've seen several times, this horn shape coming out here. So when people put their fingers here to concentrate, they're actually adding energy back into the mental system to aid thinking. So many, many curiosities, and explains many, many things about body language, including, remember the 3 levels? We often stop at the second level with people that we like and we feel comfortable with. The 2 auras stop at that second level that I described. And you'll see people naturally stop. It's almost like they feel a kind of cushioning, and that it's appropriate to stop that distance. People we're not so familiar with, if possible, will stay aura's length away from that person. You know, there's a whole spectrum of energy. There's a whole gradient of different types of energy. Again, this is in the studies, 7 levels, denominated in the past as the astral light. So 7 different layers of quality. But for the purpose of this conversation, let's say bad or very bad, bad, ordinary, and special energy. So there's different types of energy in different places anyway, because the planet has places like swamps and places where static energy in general will gather. Lower down in valleys, often there's a staticky type of energy. Sometimes when you have a river and there's an area that doesn't flow, you start seeing the water get stagnant, and then insects come, and it has an unpleasant energy. So there is a natural aspect to lower energy, but it's like lower and natural. Unfortunately, there's also human contribution, wars, conflict, aggression, all these types of things leave a residual atmosphere. And I'm sure you've had the experience, especially if you've traveled, of coming to somewhere and feeling a bad energy, or perhaps in your town or city, there's areas you don't go to because you feel it has a bad energy. And this is human generation processing these lower elements of the astral light and leaving a residual in that area. And sure enough, it can permeate your aura and affect your thinking, affect your emotions, and eventually affect your health. So positioning is very important. The place where you are, where you position yourself. Think of the art of Feng Shui or Feng Shui. The whole positioning around the house of items, but the item that they don't talk about is the person themselves. So where you face, how you sit, what position in relation to other things and other people, it's going to affect how you feel. So it's interesting to go to a park, for example, and instead of just sitting on the chair that they've provided or the seat that they've provided, see where you feel like going to, where your intuition or instincts asking you to go to. And there may be an energy spot there. There may be a ley line passing through there. You know, ley lines are like the body's meridian lines, but for the planet. In the past, after these ley lines crossed over, they would build churches and temples because they were high energy spots. And the attitude was every bit helps. So we want God here in this temple, but we're also going to get as much energy as we can straight off the planet. And so you can find these places especially if you have an open field, if you walk a bit and use your intuition, you can find that you are drawn to stand in a certain spot. And if you're sensitive, you'll feel your energy levels rise up. You can also treat yourself as a compass. Which direction would I be inclined to face right now? And by altering your position, your direction, energy will start to load up as well. So it's good to start getting sensitive to these things, because sometimes a little alteration, a little position change can make all the difference. Again, to do with sacred places or special energy places, you get the idea of taking the shoes off before going into these places. This was mentioned earlier as well in another episode. There's a part in the Bible when Moses walks into the cave to encounter God, and God says, please take your shoes off. And he takes his shoes off so this holy energy can come up through the feet. Quite incredible. You think about how we basically walk on pavement, or you live on the 8th floor, or you live in a city with a lot of concrete, and we are disconnected from not just holy force, but normal energy coming up, healthy planetary energy, natural energy coming up from the earth. We're often disconnected from it. So when you are out somewhere and you can take off your shoes, try at least a couple of minutes each day to get your shoes off and your feet touching the ground. There's multiple benefits for it, but one aspect is to let energy come in. So the art of being in a place that's got sacred energy and letting energy in starts there, taking shoes off, but it doesn't end there. There's a lot of other elements to do with it. For example, quietening oneself down and clearing one's aura so that you can catch the nature of that place. Otherwise, a person can be a bit like a stocked and stacked, filled with their own energies, and wherever they go, they don't really feel anything else because they're just full of themselves. There's that expression, he's full of himself. Well, we all can end up a bit full of ourselves electrically and not have any new, fresh experiences with energies in different places. So that's a little bit about placing and positioning. And it's a very important thread to continue thinking about, obviously, because it can make all the difference in one's development. It can make all the difference in one's well-being, health, perceptions. And so there's an ongoing study there, isn't there, about the place of things in our own system, the positioning, and the reason for that, and also out there in the world, out there in nature. And the difference, for example, between the energies of the seaside and the energies of a forest. The difference between where on the beach. Are you up on the sand or further into the water? The energy state changes. Walking along just where the water hits the sand, a lot of people love to do because there's a meeting there, and that rub causes a special third electrical state. So there's many things. That's a few ideas for this Electrical Human Part 3. Remember to check out the website. It's a fascinating journey. And then you can join other calls, live calls, where we can converse certain points, practice, study, and train in certain areas of these Ruby Mountain studies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in Electrical Human Part 4.